What if I told you that the most successful gardeners in your neighborhood are not spending more money than you? They are spending less. And the reason their tomatoes are the size of softballs while yours are struggling has nothing to do with talent, expensive tools, or a green thumb. It has everything to do with about a dozen secrets that the gardening industry has quietly decided not to tell you. Because if you knew them, you would stop buying half the products they sell. I spent 3 years digging through agricultural university research, old farming journals, and conversations with gardeners who have been growing food since before YouTube existed. And what I found changed everything about how I garden. Today I am giving you 25 of those secrets, ranked from genuinely useful to absolutely jaw-dropping. Stick around for number 19 because that one single trick added over 60 extra days to my growing season without a greenhouse, without a heat lamp, and without spending a single extra dollar. And number 25 is the one that professional growers use at home gardeners almost never hear about. It can double your harvest from the exact same garden space. Before we start, if you are new here, I am posting practical, science-backed gardening content every single week. Hit that subscribe button right now so you do not miss what is coming. And I have linked everything I personally use and recommend in the description below, including some products that genuinely change my garden results. Now let's get into it. Number 1. The soil test that changes everything before you plant a single seed. Most gardeners fail before they ever put a seed in the ground. And they do not even know it. They buy beautiful transplants, carefully prepare their beds, water faithfully, and then watch their plants limp along producing nothing impressive all season. They blame the weather. They blame bad luck. The real problem was invisible and sitting right underneath their feet: soil pH. 2 words that determine whether your plants can access the nutrients in your soil or whether those nutrients just sit there completely unavailable no matter how much fertilizer you add. Here is the thing that nobody explains clearly enough: you can dump expensive fertilizer into soil with the wrong pH all season long and your plants will starve anyway. The nutrients are physically locked out, like pouring money through a locked gate. Most vegetables want soil between 6.0 and 7.0. Below that, nutrients like phosphorus and calcium become unavailable. Above it, iron and manganese lock out. Either way, your plants look hungry even when the soil is technically full of food. The quick home test. Take a tablespoon of your garden soil. Drop it into a jar and add half a cup of plain white vinegar. If it fizzes, your soil is alkaline, above 7.0. Plants like blueberries, azaleas, and potatoes will struggle there without amendments. Now take a fresh sample. Mix it with a little water and add half a cup of baking soda. If that fizzes, your soil runs acidic, below 6.0. Brassicas, onions, and most flowers will underperform. But here is where I will be completely straight with you. The vinegar and baking soda test tells you the general direction. If you want exact numbers that let you correct your soil precisely, you need a real test. I use and personally recommend the Soil Test Kit. I have linked it in the description. You mail in a small sample and get back a complete breakdown of your pH, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and 11 other nutrients, plus specific recommendations for your exact soil. It costs less than 1 bag of fertilizer and saves you from wasting money on amendments you do not need or missing ones you desperately do. It is the first thing I recommend to every struggling gardener I talk to. Fix the pH first, then feed the soil. In that order. Number 2. Why you should bury your tomatoes lying down. If you have never planted a tomato horizontally, you are leaving a significant portion of your harvest on the table every single season. Here is the biology that changes everything. Tomato stems are covered in tiny bumps called adventitious root initials, scientific name for something beautifully simple. Anywhere that stem touches moist soil, a new root will grow. Every single bump is a potential root waiting to happen. When you plant vertically, only the root ball at the bottom develops. When you dig a shallow trench and lay the entire stem horizontally, burying everything except the top cluster of leaves, that entire stem transforms into a massive underground root system. University studies consistently show this method increases fruit production by 40 to 60% compared to standard vertical planting. The buried stem also sits in the warmer upper layer of soil, which tomatoes love because they are tropical plants at heart and absolutely hate cold roots in spring. The plant looks ridiculous for about a week. It is basically lying face down in the dirt while the top leaves point sideways. Then it curves toward the sun and within 10 days looks completely normal. Meanwhile, underground, it has built a root system 3 times larger than its vertical neighbors. More roots means more water and nutrient uptake. More uptake means more fruit. It is the simplest math in gardening. Dig the trench, strip the lower leaves from the buried section, lay the plant in gently, cover it up, and water it in. That is it. The plant does the rest. Number 3. The free drip irrigation system sitting in your recycling bin. Commercial drip irrigation systems work beautifully and cost between $50 and $200 depending on how much garden you are covering. They are worth every penny if you have the budget. But there is a version that costs nothing and works just as well for individual plants. Gallon milk jugs. Save them. Do not recycle them. Heat a large nail over your stove burner for about 30 seconds. Use the hot nail to poke 2 small holes near the very bottom of the jug. The heat makes clean holes that will not crack or split the plastic over time. Bury the jug next to your thirsty plant. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers. Bury it deep enough that only the neck and cap sit above the soil line. Fill it with water once or twice a week. The water seeps slowly through those tiny holes directly into the root zone. No evaporation. No runoff. No surface moisture that encourages weeds and fungal disease. Every drop goes straight to where roots actually are. Research from drip irrigation studies shows this method can reduce water use by up to 70% compared to surface watering while producing better plant growth because roots receive consistent moisture rather than the feast-and-famine cycle of manual watering. Now, if you want to step this up to cover a full raised bed or multiple garden rows, the Rain Drip automatic drip watering system I have linked below is what I personally installed last season. It connects to your hose, runs on a timer, and waters up to 20 plants automatically. It paid for itself in water savings and time within one summer. Link is in the description. Number 4. Cinnamon is the most underrated tool in your entire garden. $3. That is what a container of ground cinnamon costs at the discount store. And it does things in your garden that specialty products charge 20 times that amount to accomplish. Damping off disease is the silent killer of seedlings. Your little plants look perfect one morning. By evening they are collapsed at the soil line, dead before they had a chance. A soil-borne fungus did it. And once it appears in a seed tray, it moves fast. Dust the surface of your seed starting mix with ground cinnamon before planting. The anti-fungal compounds in cinnamon, primarily cinnamaldehyde, create an environment that fungal spores cannot survive in. This one step eliminates damping off from most seed trays completely. Taking cuttings to propagate plants? Dip the fresh cut end in cinnamon powder before placing it in soil or water. The cut isn't open wound. Bacteria and fungus target open wounds. Cinnamon seals and protects the cutting while it focuses energy on growing roots instead of fighting infection. Ants farming aphids on your plants? Draw a cinnamon line round the base of affected plants. Ants refuse to cross it. They find the compounds in cinnamon physically offensive. No chemicals, no traps, just a spice circle and suddenly the ant highway to your plants is closed. Mushrooms popping up in your lawn or beds. Dust cinnamon directly on the soil around them. It disrupts the fungal mycelium and discourages new growth. One $3 container handles all of these applications for an entire season. I genuinely cannot think of a better cost-to-value ratio in the entire garden. Number 5. The newspaper weed barrier that outperforms landscape fabric. Let me tell you what landscape fabric actually does after about 18 months in your garden. It breaks down into small pieces of synthetic material that tangle in your soil for decades. Weeds learn to grow through it and then root into the fabric itself, making them harder to pull than before. Water struggles to penetrate it evenly. And you paid good money for the privilege. Old newspapers do everything landscape fabric promises to do, and then they break down into soil organic matter and bring earthworms to aerate your beds. The method is simple, but the execution matters. Lay newspaper directly on top of existing weeds or bare soil. 10 sheets thick minimum. Most people use 2 or 3 and wonder why weeds punch right through. 10. If you are dealing with aggressive grasses like Bermuda or quack grass, go 15. Wet the newspaper thoroughly after laying it. This weighs it down so it does not blow around before you cover it, and it starts the decomposition process. Cover with 3 to 4 inches of compost or wood chip mulch. The newspaper blocks all light from reaching weed seeds and existing weeds underneath. Without light, they die. As the paper decomposes over 4 to 6 months, it feeds soil biology and earthworms. The earthworm activity creates channels through the soil that improve drainage and aeration better than any tool. By the following spring, where there were weeds, there is now rich, loose, biologically active soil ready to plant. If you do not get newspaper delivered, check your local recycling center or ask a neighbor. Most people are happy to give it away. Stack it before it gets wet and store it in the garage for the season. Number 6. Aspirin water and the science behind it. This one sounds like an old wives' tale until you understand the plant biology, and then it sounds like genius. Plants under stress, attacked by pests or disease, produce a compound called salicylic acid as part of their immune response. It essentially puts the plant on high alert, triggering a cascade of defensive reactions throughout its system. Regular and-coated aspirin is acetylsalicylic acid. When it dissolves in water and you apply it to plants, you are giving them a signal that mimics that immune activation. You are essentially telling the plant to toughen up before the stress hits. 1 regular and coated aspirin tablet, not coated, not enteric, just plain, dissolved in 1 gallon of water. Use this when transplanting seedlings from indoors to the garden. Use it when dividing and moving established plants. Use it at the beginning of the season to prime your plant's immune systems. The results are particularly dramatic with tomato transplants in spring when the shift from indoor conditions to outdoor weather involves temperature swings, wind, and sun intensity that shock young plants. Aspirin-treated transplants recover from transplant shock measurably faster and with less wilting. University research from Cornell and other agricultural programs has confirmed salicylic acid's role in plant immunity. This is not folk wisdom dressed up as science. The mechanism is understood and documented. 1 tablet, 1 gallon. Use it at transplanting time. Your seedling loss rate will drop noticeably. Number 7. Companion planting that actually works, and the combinations that disappoint. Companion planting information on the internet falls into 2 categories. Combinations that have genuine biological evidence behind them and combinations that someone once suggested on a blog and have been repeated ever since without anyone checking. Let me give you the ones that actually work and why. Basil and tomatoes. Real benefit. The volatile oils in basil, specifically linalool and eugenol, have documented repellent effects on aphids, spider mites, and tomato hornworm moths. The moths that lay hornworm eggs navigate partly by scent. Basil disrupts their ability to locate tomato plants. Plant basil between tomato plants at a ratio of roughly 1 basil to every 2 tomatoes. Nasturtiums as trap crops for aphids. This one is reliable enough that commercial organic farms use it. Aphids strongly prefer nasturtiums over most vegetables. Plant nasturtiums at the edges and corners of vegetable beds. Aphids colonize the nasturtiums first. Check them regularly. When aphids appear, you have a concentrated population that is easy to treat rather than aphids spread across your entire garden. Marigolds against root knot nematodes. This one requires commitment. French marigolds, specifically Tagetes patula, produce compounds from their roots that kill nematodes in the surrounding soil. But they need to be grown as a solid planting for a full season, not just dotted round. Plant a dense bed of French marigolds in a problem area for one full season. Till them, and at the end, and the nematode population in that area drops dramatically. Chives round roses genuinely help prevent black spot. The sulfur compounds in the chive family create soil and air chemistry that the fungus dislikes. This one is subtle but consistent. What does not work as reliably as the internet claims? Planting mint everywhere. Mint spreads aggressively and becomes a weed problem faster than it solves a pest problem. If you use mint as a companion, keep it in pots sunk into the soil to contain the roots. Number 8. The cardboard garden bed method that eliminates digging forever. Starting a new garden bed the traditional way involves removing sod with a spade, a process that takes most of a Saturday, leaves you unable to walk properly Sunday morning, and still leaves behind roots that send up new growth for months. There is a method called sheet mulching that accomplishes the same goal with about 30 minutes of effort and no tools heavier than a cardboard box. Collect cardboard boxes, moving boxes, shipping boxes, appliance boxes. Remove any tape, staples, or glossy labels. Flatten them completely. Lay the flattened cardboard directly on top of the grass or weeds you want to eliminate. Do not remove anything first. Just lay cardboard on top. Overlap the edges by at least 6 inches so weeds cannot find gaps to grow through. Wet the cardboard thoroughly. It needs to be saturated. Now cover it with a minimum of 6 inches of a compost in topsoil mix. 8 to 10 inches if you can manage it. You can plant directly into this layer immediately if you are adding transplants. What happens underneath over the following months is exactly what you want. The grass is cut off from light and smothers. The cardboard, wet and now under soil, begins to break down. Earthworms love cardboard and move into the area in large numbers. Their activity breaks down the grass in cardboard into organic matter and their tunnels air it and drainage the soil. By the following spring, that area has better soil than beds you have been maintaining for years. The grass is completely gone. What was lawn is now a rich growing bed. The only cost is the compost and soil you cover it with. The labor is a fraction of traditional bed preparation. The results are genuinely better. This is the rare case where less effort produces a superior outcome. We are halfway through and I want to take 30 seconds to mention something. Every product I recommend on this channel is something I have personally tested in my own garden. I researched them carefully and I only link to things that genuinely performed well for me, right? Now the single most common question I get from newer gardeners is about seed starting, and I always point them to the same resource. I have put together a complete recommended seed starting kit in the description below. It covers the seed trays I use, the heat mat that increased my germination rates dramatically, and the grow light setup I run in my basement every spring. Everything is linked separately so you can choose what fits your setup and budget. Check it out after the video. Now back to the secrets because we are just getting to the really good ones. Number 9. The hydrogen peroxide rescue for overwatered plants. More houseplants in container vegetables die from overwatering than from any pest, disease, or neglect. The problem is that overwatering looks identical to underwatering until you check the soil. Yellow leaves, wilting despite wet soil, musty smell from the pot. Root rot has set in. The roots are sitting in anaerobic, oxygen-depleted soil. Bacteria that thrive without oxygen have colonized the root zone. The roots are rotting even as you pour more water on them. Standard hydrogen peroxide from the drugstore, 3% concentration, the brown bottle, mixed at 1 part peroxide to 2 parts water, addresses this directly. When you pour this mixture into affected soil, the extra oxygen molecule releases on contact. This does 2 things simultaneously. It kills the anaerobic bacteria causing the rot and it floods the root zone with oxygen that roots desperately need to recover. You will see it working. The soil bubbles as the oxygen releases. This is exactly what you want to see. After treatment, resist the urge to water normally. Let the soil dry out significantly more than usual before the next watering. The entire problem cycle started with too much moisture. Breaking that cycle is essential. This treatment also eliminates fungus gnat larvae. Those small flies hovering around your indoor plants lay eggs in moist soil. The larvae live in the top inch of soil. One hydrogen peroxide treatment kills them completely. Use it as a rescue treatment when root rot is present and as a preventive drench once a month in pots that tend to stay too wet. Number 10. Epsom salt. The truth about what it does and what it does not. Epsom salt is one of the most discussed and most misunderstood garden amendments. The internet will tell you to put it on everything. The truth is more specific and more useful once you understand it. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. Plants need magnesium to produce chlorophyll, the molecule responsible for photosynthesis. When magnesium is deficient, leaves show a very specific symptom called intervenal chlorosis. The leaf turns yellow, but the veins stay green. That network of green against yellow background is the diagnostic signature of magnesium deficiency. If your plants show the symptom, Epsom salt is a logical response. Dissolve 1 tablespoon per gallon of water and apply to the soil around affected plants every 2 weeks. Tomatoes and peppers are the most likely candidates because they're heavy feeders and magnesium often depletes first in intensively planted beds. Roses showing the same yellowing pattern respond well to monthly applications during the growing season. Here is what Epsom salt does not do. It is not a general fertilizer. It contains no nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium, the 3 nutrients plants need in the largest quantities. If your plants are struggling and not showing that specific yellowing pattern, adding Epsom salt will not help and may actually interfere with the uptake of calcium and potassium at the roots if applied. Do not spray it on leaves, apply at soil level, and do not exceed the recommended rates. Thinking more will help more. My pepper plants in 2019 taught me this lesson the hard way. I doubled the rate and the plants looked worse within a week. Use it targeted and specific. That is when it genuinely works. Number 11. Beer traps for slugs, and the half-inch detail that changes everything. Slug damage overnight is infuriating. You go to bed with beautiful hosta leaves. You wake up to green lace. They ate everything while you were sleeping and left nothing behind but a faint slime trail as evidence. Beer traps work. But the setup detail that almost nobody mentions makes the difference between trapping slugs and accidentally killing the beetles that eat slugs. Take a shallow container. Tuna cans work perfectly. So do yogurt containers or any shallow cup. Bury it in the soil near affected plants. Here is the detail. The rim of the container should sit exactly half an inch above the soil surface, not flush with it. Half an inch above. Ground beetles are one of the slug's primary predators. They are large, dark, fast-moving beetles you sometimes see when you move a rock or board. They cannot climb that half-inch lip. Slugs can and will fill with the cheapest beer available. Slugs are attracted to the carbon dioxide and yeast smell. They are not craft beer enthusiasts. They crawl in and drown. Replace the beer every 3 days or after significant rain. Diluted or old beer loses its attractiveness fast. Place traps every 2 to 3 feet in problem areas. Be prepared to be genuinely alarmed at how many slugs your garden is hiding. The trap count from a single night can be staggering. For anyone dealing with serious slug pressure on multiple beds, I have linked Slugga Plus in the description below. It is the organic slug control I use when traps alone cannot keep up. Iron phosphate based, safe for pets and wildlife, and highly effective. It is the one slug product I feel comfortable recommending without reservation. Number 12. What cooking water does for your plants that most gardeners pour down the drain. Every time you boil pasta, steam vegetables, or hard cook eggs, you're creating something your plants genuinely want. And then you are throwing it away. Pasta water is full of starch. Vegetable cooking water contains leached vitamins and minerals. Egg water picks up calcium carbonate from the shells as it heats. None of these replace fertilizer, but as a free supplement applied regularly throughout the season, they contribute to soil biology in ways that pay off cumulatively. Let the water cool completely before using it. This is not optional. Hot water directly kills roots in the soil organisms that support root health Let it reach room temperature before it touches your garden. Pour cold pasta water around vegetables and fruit plants. The starch feeds beneficial soil bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi, the invisible workforce that makes nutrients available to plant roots. You are feeding the team that feeds your plants. Vegetable water goes anywhere the nutrients are diluted enough that they are essentially a mild liquid fertilizer and can go on any plant. Egg water is particularly good around plants that need calcium. Blossom and rot in tomatoes and peppers is a calcium uptake disorder. Regular applications of egg water around these plants provides a gentle, steady calcium source. Avoid water from cooking heavily salted food and anything oily or fatty. Otherwise, what was going down the drain is now building your soil. Number 13. Garlic spray that pests hate and beneficial insects ignore. Commercial pesticides have an indiscriminate problem. They killed the pests you targeted and the beneficial insects you needed. Spray for aphids and you kill the ladybugs eating those aphids. Spray for beetles and you kill the pollinators visiting your flowers. The garden ecosystem gets disrupted and often the pest rebounds faster than the beneficials. Garlic spray targets off-bodied sucking insects, aphids, spider mites, whiteflies, and thrips, while leaving most beneficial insects largely unaffected. Bees and ladybugs do not seem deterred by the smell in the way that pest insects are. 2 full garlic bulbs, not individual cloves, blended with 1 quart of water until completely liquefied. Strain through cheesecloth or old fabric to remove all solid material. Add the strained liquid to a spray bottle and fill to 1 gallon with water. Let the mixture sit for 24 hours before using. This waiting period matters. The sulfur compounds need time to fully infuse the water. Apply early morning to both the top and undersides of leaves. Undersides are where most pests hide and feed. Reapply every week to 2 weeks during pest season and again after any rain because it washes off easily. Your garden will smell strongly of garlic for a day or 2 after application. I will not pretend otherwise. But the smell dissipates and what remains on the leaf surfaces continues to deter insects long after the smell fades to human noses. Cost per application is essentially nothing if you grow garlic, which you absolutely should be doing. Number 14. The raised bed depth mistake that costs you half your harvest. Raised beds became popular for excellent reasons. Better drainage, warmer soil in spring, fewer back problems, and easier pest management. But there is a depth specification that most garden bed building guides mention briefly and most gardeners ignore completely. 6 inches of soil depth works for lettuce, radishes, herbs, and shallow-rooted greens. These plants do not need much room below ground. If that is all the depth you have, those are the only crops that will truly thrive. Tomatoes want a minimum of 12 inches. Their roots need to dive deep searching for consistent moisture and nutrients. In shallow beds, they hit the bottom, spread sideways, and the plant spends the season stressed. Small fruits, susceptibility to drought, early blossom and rot. Carrots in 8 inches of soil do not grow straight. They hit resistance and fork sideways, producing bizarre twisted roots that are difficult to use and disappointing to harvest. Carrots want 12 to 18 inches of loose, stone-free soil. Peppers, squash, cucumbers, melons, all fruiting vegetables perform significantly better with 12 or more inches of root space. The cost difference between a 6-inch bed and a 12-inch bed is additional lumber and additional soil. The harvest difference between them can be 50% or more. For anyone building new raised beds or adding height to existing ones, I have linked my recommended cedar raised bed kit in the description. Cedar is naturally rot-resistant, untreated, and what I use in my own garden. The link gives you the dimensions I recommend for serious vegetable production. Build them right once, and they produce for 10 to 15 years. Number 15. Why you should stop raking leaves and what to do instead. Every fall, neighborhoods fill with the sound of raking and the sight of enormous bags of leaves waiting for the curb. People exhaust themselves removing something that costs nothing and then drive to the garden center to buy bags of mulch to replace what they just removed. Leaves are nature's mulch. They are the exact covering that forest soil has developed under for millions of years. The soil organisms, the earthworms, the beneficial insects, the fungi that support plant roots, they all evolved in the presence of leaf litter. Removing it disrupts the system that grows the healthiest plants. A thin layer of leaves left on garden beds provides insulation through winter, protecting plant roots and soil organisms from freeze-thaw cycles. As leaves break down in spring, they feed soil biology and improve soil structure. The single modification that matters is shredding. Whole leaves can mat down into an impermeable layer that repels water and smothers plants. Run your lawn mower over leaf piles to shred them to smaller pieces that settle between plants without matting. Shredded leaves on vegetable beds suppress spring weeds, retain moisture during summer drought, and slowly feed the soil all season. There is also an ecological reason that goes beyond your garden. Firefly populations have declined by up to 75% in many areas over recent decades. Firefly larvae spend 2 years living in leaf litter before becoming the beetles we love to watch on summer evenings. When you rake everything clean, you eliminate their habitat. Same for native bees, moth caterpillars that birds depend on, and dozens of other insects that overwinter in leaf litter. Leave the leaves. Shred them if they're thick. Let your garden and your local ecosystem benefit from what falls for free. Number 16. The seed viability test that saves you from a season of disappointment. You found seeds from last year. Maybe from 2 years ago. Maybe you cannot remember exactly when you bought them. Should you plant them? Planting old seeds that have lost viability means preparing beds, spending time, waiting for germination that never comes, and losing weeks of your growing season while you figure out what went wrong. The germination test takes 10 minutes and gives you a definitive answer before you commit a single square foot of garden space. Take 10 seeds from the packet you want to test. Lay them spaced apart on one half of a damp paper towel. Fold the other half over them. Slide the whole thing into a plastic bag and seal it. Write the date and seed variety on the bag with a marker. Place it somewhere warm. The top of your refrigerator, a high shelf, anywhere that stays consistently around 70 degrees. Check it in the time frame appropriate to that crop. Fast germinators like radishes and lettuce, check in 5 days. Slower ones like peppers and parsley, give it 10 to 14 days. Count how many of the 10 seeds have sprouted. 6 or more means the seed is worth planting, with the understanding that germination rates will be somewhat lower than fresh seed and you should plant a bit more densely to compensate. Fewer than 4 sprouts means the seed viability is too low to be reliable. Compost those seeds and buy fresh. This test costs nothing and takes 10 minutes. The alternative is discovering the problem 8 weeks into your growing season when it is too late to replant. Number 17. Succession planting, the strategy that gives you harvests instead of explosions. Every gardener has experienced the zucchini problem. You wait all season, nothing is ready, and then suddenly on one specific Wednesday in August you have 14 zucchinis and they are all enormous and you cannot give them away fast enough. The feast-and-famine cycle is the most common frustration in vegetable gardening, and it is almost entirely preventable with one planting strategy. Succession planting means sowing small amounts of the same crop every 2 to 3 weeks instead of planting everything at once. Rather than 50 lettuce plants all maturing on the same day, you plant 10 lettuce plants every 2 weeks starting in early spring. You harvest 10 fresh heads every 2 weeks from spring through early summer and then again in fall. This applies to almost every crop. Beans planted in 3 successions 2 weeks apart give you fresh beans for 6 weeks instead of a massive harvest all at once. Carrots succession planted give you a continuous harvest, rather than digging everything at once and struggling to store it. The planning tool that makes this manageable is a simple planning calendar. Write your last frost date at the top. Count backward from your first desired harvest date. Schedule plantings every 2 weeks. Stick to the schedule even when the garden looks full because the first planting will be harvested by the time the later ones need that space. I have a free printable succession planting guide linked in the description along with the garden planning notebook I use personally. Paper planting sounds old-fashioned until the season arrives and you know exactly what to plant, when, and where without having to think about it under pressure. Number 18. The pruning timing rule that gardeners get wrong every single year. Every spring, someone in the neighborhood prunes their forsythia in March. They do a careful, thorough job, and then they get zero flowers all season. They blame the shrub, they blame the weather. The cause was it pruning? Spring blooming shrubs, forsythia, lilac, azalea, viburnum, weigela, they all form their flower buds the previous summer and fall. Those buds sit dormant through winter and open in spring. When you prune these plants in early spring, you are cutting off every flower bud the plant spent last year developing. The rule for spring blooming shrubs is absolute. Prune immediately after flowering finishes. That gives the plant a full summer and fall to grow new wood and set new buds for next year's display. Summer and fall blooming plants operate on the opposite cycle. Roses, butterfly bush, caryopteris, most hydrangeas. These bloom on new growth produced in the current season. Prune them in late winter while dormant, and you are cutting away what that has not yet formed buds. New growth comes in spring, buds form on that new growth, and you get flowers. The one plant that confuses everyone is hydrangeas because different varieties follow different rules. Big leaf hydrangeas, the classic pink and blue ones, bloom on old wood like spring bloomers. Prune in fall or early spring and you lose the flowers. Smooth hydrangeas and panicle hydrangeas bloom on new wood like summer bloomers. You can cut them back hard in late winter and they bloom beautifully on the vigorous new growth. Know which type you have before you make a cut. The flower timing tells you everything you need to know about the right time to prune. Number 19. The season extension secret that adds 60 days to your garden without a greenhouse. This is the one I mentioned at the beginning, and it genuinely changed how I garden more than almost anything else I have learned. Most gardeners accept that their season starts after their last frost date in spring and ends before their first frost date in fall. That window might be for months, maybe 5. The gardeners who supply their own family with vegetables for 8 or 9 months of the year are not doing anything dramatically different. They are using simple, inexpensive season extension tools that shift both ends of that window by 4 to 6 weeks each. Row cover fabric is the primary tool. It is a lightweight, frost-resistant material that lets light and water through while trapping enough heat to protect plants from freezes that would otherwise kill them. A layer of row cover can protect plants down to 24 or 26 degrees depending on the weight you choose. This extends your fall growing season by 4 to 6 weeks in most climates. The same fabric in spring lets you transplant cold hardy crops like lettuce, spinach, kale, and broccoli 4 to 6 weeks before your official last frost date. The covered plants stay warm enough to grow while unprotected beds cannot even be worked yet. Cold frames take this further. A simple box frame with an old window or polycarbonate panel on top creates a passive solar environment that can be 20 to 30 degrees warmer than outside air. Plants growing in a cold frame in November feel like they are in October. In February they feel like March. I have linked the row cover fabric I use in the cold frame kit I recommend in the description. The row cover is inexpensive enough to cover a full raised bed for under $15. The cold frame turns your 4-season growing from a dream into an actual schedule. 60 extra growing days, that is to full additional months of fresh food from the same garden. Number 20. The mycorrhizal fungi secret that professional growers use and home gardeners miss. This is the one I saved near the end because it operates invisibly and the results take a full season to fully appreciate, but once you understand it, you will never plant another transplant without it. Plant roots do not work alone. In healthy and disturbed soil, plant roots live in intimate partnership with fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi extend into the soil in a network of threads millions of times finer than roots, reaching water and nutrients that roots physically cannot access. The fungi deliver these resources to the plant. The plant feeds the fungi with sugars from photosynthesis. This partnership is ancient. Plants evolved with mycorrhizal fungi over hundreds of millions of years. In natural ecosystems, it is nearly universal. In cultivated garden soil, It is often severely depleted by tilling, synthetic fertilizers, and lack of organic matter. When you transplant a seedling with no mycorrhizal network in place, it spends weeks or months slowly establishing connections in the soil. During that time, it is working at a fraction of its potential. Mycorrhizal inoculant is a product that introduces these fungi directly to the root zone at planting time. You dust it on the roots of transplants or mix it into the planting hole. The fungi establish immediately. The plant has a working network from day one. Research comparing plants grown with and without mycorrhizal inoculant consistently shows improvements in establishment speed, drought resistance, nutrient uptake, and overall yield. The product I personally use is linked in the description. A single container treats dozens of transplants and lasts multiple seasons. It is one of the lower cost, highest impact things I have added to my planting routine. Transplant into mycorrhizal inoculant once and you will not plant without it again. Number 21. Banana peel fertilizer, the method that actually works. Someone probably told you to bury banana peels near your roses. The idea is right. The execution is usually where it falls apart. Whole banana peels buried in garden soil sit there for months. As they slowly rot, they attract every digging pest in your neighborhood. Raccoons, squirrels, and chipmunks can smell them from a distance and will excavate your beds happily to investigate. Meanwhile, your plants get no benefit for weeks. Save banana peels in the freezer. Once you have a good collection, blend them with water until completely liquefied. The blending ruptures the cell walls and releases the potassium, phosphorus, and trace minerals immediately. Pour the liquid directly around plants at the soil level. In this form, the nutrients are immediately available rather than waiting months for decomposition. Potassium strengthens cell walls, improves drought resistance, and supports flowering and fruit development. Every plant in your garden benefits, but flowering plants and fruit producers respond most noticeably. Apply blended banana peel liquid every 2 weeks during the growing season. 1 banana worth of peel per plant is the right amount. Roses, tomatoes, peppers, squash, and anything blooming will reward you. Keep the liquid concentrated by using the minimum water needed to make blending work. A thick slurry diluted slightly at the soil line feeds the soil biology as it soaks in. Number 22. The moon planting method that keeps surprising people who try it. Mention planting by the moon in most gardening conversations and you will get a polite smile from people who think you have been reading the many old almanacs. But farmers followed lunar cycles for thousands of years across cultures that had no contact with each other. Native American agricultural traditions, European peasant farming, traditional Chinese agriculture, all incorporated lunar timing. That kind of independent convergence on the same practice across separate civilizations is at least worth examining before dismissing. The basic principle. During the new moon through the first quarter, gravitational and light effects on soil moisture are thought to benefit seeds in plants growing above ground. Lettuce, spinach, herbs, flowers, anything where you eat the leaves or the fruit above soil. During the third quarter through new moon, energy is thought to favor root development. Plant root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, onions, garlic during this phase. A study published in the Journal of Applied Horticulture in 2012 found statistically significant differences in germination rates based on lunar phase at planting time. One study is not proof of a mechanism, but consistent results in any experiment deserve attention rather than dismissal. The practical test costs nothing. You are planting seeds regardless. Paying attention to the moon phase when you do it requires no extra effort and no additional expense. Try it for 1 season with a control planting done outside the recommended phases. Let your own garden tell you what it thinks. Number 23. Self-watering container setup that eliminates the biggest container garden failure. Container gardening fails most often for one reason: inconsistent watering. Containers dry out fast in summer heat. Miss 2 days and your pepper plants drop their flowers. The stress cycle of wet, dry produces poor harvest and weak plants even when everything else is done correctly. Self-watering containers solve this with a reservoir system that waters from the bottom up. Plants draw moisture through the soil as they need it. The reservoir holds several days to a week of water depending on conditions. You fill it from the top through a fill tube. Roots in self-watering systems are dramatically healthier than in conventionally watered containers. They develop dense, even root systems that fill the growing chamber. Consistency of moisture means no stress, no drop blossoms, no blossom in rot. You can build a self-watering container from any large container, a plastic storage tote, a 5-gallon bucket, or a large planter. The internal system consists of a water reservoir at the bottom, a barrier that holds the soil above the water, and a wicking column of soil that draws moisture upward. Complete instructions for building these are in my Link Garden channel playlist. For anyone who wants a ready-made system, I have also linked the self-watering planters I use on my covered patio. They are specifically what I grow peppers and tomatoes in when ground space is limited. Link is in the description. Self-watering changes container growing from a daily attention requirement into something you can maintain during a long weekend away. Number 24. The deadheading rule that keeps flowers blooming all season. Most flowering plants have one biological goal from midsummer onward. Produce seeds. Set seeds successfully and the plant considers its mission accomplished. It slows down. Flower production drops. The plant redirects all energy toward maturing the seeds it has already produced. Deadheading is removing spent flowers before they can set seed. By removing those fading blooms, you interrupt the signal that tells the plant its job is done. The plant responds by producing more flowers in another attempt to set seed. For continuous bloomers like zinnias, marigolds, cosmos, petunias, salvias, and echinacea, consistent deadheading keeps the plant flowering from summer through frost rather than going through one flush and declining. The technique matters. Simply pulling off the old flower head is not enough. You need to cut back to either the next healthy bud below or to where the stem meets a leaf. This removes the energy demand of the spent flower and directs energy to the next bud. Deadhead every 3 to 5 days during peak season. It takes 10 minutes in a small garden and produces results that look like you have a professional landscaper. Some plants reseed themselves beautifully if you stop deadheading toward end of season and let the final flush set seed. Zinnias, cosmos, and marigolds all grow reliably from self-sown seed the following year. Stop deadheading in September and let the last flowers go to seed. Mark where they fell. Next spring, seedlings will appear in those spots without any additional effort. Number 25. The harvest timing secret that doubles the productivity of everything you grow. This is the one that professional market gardeners use at home. Gardeners almost never hear stated this clearly. Most vegetables should be harvested before they reach what looks like peak size. Not after. Before. The biology behind this is simple and changes everything. While a vegetable is growing toward full size, the plant is focused on that fruit. Hormonal signals in the plant direct water, sugars, and nutrients to the developing fruit. Once that fruit reaches maturity and begins to age, those same signals tell the plant that reproduction was successful. Flower and fruit production slows dramatically. When you harvest beans while they are still slender, the seeds inside have not fully developed, the plant immediately produces more flowers. More flowers mean more beans. Harvest every 2 to 3 days during bean season and a single plant produces prolifically all season. Leave beans to mature on the vine and production slows within days. Zucchini harvested at 6 to 8 inches is more tender, tastier, and signals the plant to keep producing. A single zucchini that swells to baseball bat proportions over a forgotten weekend takes the plant off harvest production for a week. Cucumbers harvested before they yellow. Peppers picked as they reach usable size rather than waiting for maximum size. Tomatoes brought in as they soften. All of these practices tell the plant to keep producing rather than to slow down. Pick young. Pick often. Pick before anything is overripe. This single habit applied consistently throughout your season can genuinely double the total harvest from the same number of plants in the same amount of garden space. Here is what I want you to take away from today. None of these require expensive products. None require specialized knowledge you cannot learn in an afternoon. All of them are grounded in biology and backed by either generations of consistent results or actual research, usually both. The difference between a thriving garden and a frustrating one is almost never about how much you spend. It is almost always about what you know. I post new content every single week. Practical, tested, explain clearly enough that it actually works in your real garden rather than just sounding good. If you are not subscribed yet, subscribe right now. I promise you will learn something useful in every video. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these you are trying first. I read every single comment and I reply to as many as I can. The conversation in the comments on this channel is genuinely some of the best gardening discussion on YouTube, and your question might become the next video. Everything I mentioned today, the soil test kit, the self-watering containers, the roll cover fabric, the cold frame kit, the mycorrhizal inoculant, the organic slug control, the raised bed supplies. All of it is linked in the description below. These are products I personally use and stand behind. If you purchase through my links, it supports this channel at no extra cost to you, and it is genuinely the best way to help me keep making this content for free. See you next week. Go grow something incredible.